is the basic necessity of life. Not only that we need food just to sustain and nourish our bodies, there is a lot of culture around food. Food actually brings us all together. When we need food, what do? Living in urban areas, we go to a supermarket, or we go to a restaurant with our friends. We order from the menu or we pick up from the shelf. We expect the food will be there somehow, somewhere, having come magically from somewhere. If you really stop and think about for a moment that all the food that you get on a daily basis has to be produced, processed, transported, brought to the shelves, brought to your tables, and whatever you do not consume need to be disposed. No matter where you are, Ulaanbaatar, Shanghai, New York, Mumbai, Bangkok, this food system, this machinery keeps on churning. It's quite an efficient machinery if you really think about it. And no matter where we live in this world, we are all part of the same global food system. How many of us really stop and think about what's the real cost of this food? We know what we pay at the checkout counter, or we know when we sign our bill in a restaurant. That's what we know. But the fact of the matter is that the real cost of producing this food is several times higher than what we pay for. And if we don't pay for it, who does? It's either the poor farmers or the poor herders in the countryside who do not get a fair price for what they produce, or we just push this cost onto our children or their children because we just push this cost onto the environment. Let me share some numbers and statistics with you. Land. There cannot be any food without land. We need land for food production. 38 to 40% of the land actually in this world is used for agricultural production. But many of us would not realize the rate at which the health of this land is deteriorating, globally as well as in Mongolia. Our global estimates are that we are losing land almost like 23 hectares per minute. That's quite a rapid rate of. In Mongolia, already half of land is under the rangeland, and we are proud of being a rangeland nation here in Mongolia. Our 50% of our land is under various stages of degradation. And 10% has gone beyond reverse. So we cannot get it back. And this puts the lives of herders at stake. Talk about water. How much water do you drink every day? 2 liters? Those who drink more, maybe 3 liters? How much water do you use every day in your household chores? Cooking, washing, showering? 150 liters, 200 liters if you have access. How much water do you eat in your food every day? 3,000 liters, maybe even more than 3,000 liters. And I don't mean to suggest that all foods are same. Some foods take more to produce, some foods take less water to produce. Beef in a beef lot takes much more water to produce than beef on pastures. Fruits and vegetables probably take less water to produce. Rice takes more water to produce, but on average, this is the range that we are talking about. Our water footprint of agriculture is very high. So many of us talk about water biodiversity. Look at this beautiful picture. This just tells us how bountiful the nature is. But this biodiversity is not just for beauty. Our future depends on this biodiversity. The reason why agriculture and food systems have advanced so much the way they have is because our forefathers, our ancestors, thousands of years ago, took time to select the flora and the fauna and the plant varieties and the animal varieties which were productive, which could be domesticated, but which were also adapted to local environments. That is the kind of diversity we had. In the last 150 years of our global food system expansion, we have lost almost 75% of it. Currently, about 9 crops contribute to 70% of global food supply. And as I said, it is not just for beauty. Our future depends on it, because nature requires diversity. I don't know how many of you are aware of this example of this Irish famine, where they were growing one variety of potato. And so the name of the variety was lumper. And when a disease struck, the whole crop was gone, and there was nothing to protect against it because they were all identical. And almost 1 million people died at the time. So it's much more than just for beauty. Antibiotics. You know, the way the modern food systems have evolved, it's quite an amazing story. The amount of meat that we eat today is so many more times than we were eating 40, 50 years ago. How did this happen? Antibiotics were discovered in the 1940s. Before that, many more people used to actually die of simple infections. We could not perform surgeries because of the infections. Then the people that die now from the NCDs and so on. And then suddenly we discovered another side of antibiotics, which was that if you give antibiotics to animals, not to treat them, but just to prevent infection, they will actually grow faster. And the meat industry caught on. And today, globally, we use almost more than 100 million tons of antibiotics, and 2/3 of that goes for livestock, not to treat livestock, but to use it as a growth promoter. But what happens to that? The meat that is produced then goes into our bodies. And the bacteria against which these antibiotics are supposed to protect us are now becoming our own enemies because they're becoming resistant to that. So this is another time bomb that we are sitting on. Currently, almost 700,000 people globally die because of antibiotic resistance, because we cannot treat them anymore. Those who we treat takes much more expensive antibiotics now. And if nothing happens, if this goes like this, estimates are by 2050 we will be losing 10 million people. But that's really not the full story. The sad part of the story is that of all the food that we produce, we throw away about 1/3 of it. We impose such high social and environmental cost when we produce food, and it ends up in the bin. A whole billion tons of it, 1/3 of it. Do you know how much land it's going to take to produce the food that we throw away? Almost a whole of China. That's the land that is going into the producing food that we don't use. And a lot of this food is fruits and vegetables, which is what we need for our vitamins and minerals and micronutrient deficiency. And this is also not the end. Despite all the food that we throw away, 700 million people are going to the bed hungry. This should be criminal. And those who are getting the food, they are either overeating or not eating the right kind of food, and there is 2 billion people either not getting enough micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, and we are throwing the very perfectly nutritious food away, or they're becoming obese, and then the cost of non-communicable diseases. So this is the food system that we have. What do we do? Now, I don't want to hand out simple solutions here. I don't mean to suggest that we have simple solutions. And I also don't mean to suggest that not much is going on. There are lots of people who are concerned about it, and there's lots of good things happening. But it needs to happen at a much more at a higher scale, at a much more elaborated scale. And the action has to be at several levels, at our level, at the level of the government, at the level of the industry, and so on. One force that the food system really responds to is the force of consumer. It is the consumer that can actually drive how to change the food system. And I'm just going to leave you with 2 or 3 messages. I'm not going to give you any magic solutions here. One is, as consumers, we have a responsibility to educate ourselves. Where do we fit in this food chain? Where is our food coming from? What is in it? We need to make an informed choice. The change begins with education. We need to educate ourselves, we need to educate our children. We should say no to antibiotic-fed meat. This is very important. We should make choices which are healthier for us. Often I hear, oh, I want to eat healthy, but healthy food is more expensive. But healthy food is not just about exotic salads. You can actually make healthier food choices even with local foods. But it is, and I also hear why people say healthy food is more expensive. Why is it so? It shouldn't be, because it doesn't cost more to produce this healthy food. It is the market at the end of the day. And if we demand more, market will need to respond to us. The cost of healthy food need to come down. We have no business wasting food. That is something that we should commit to. How many of you go to the restaurants, take a picture of the very beautiful food that you are served, put it on the Facebook, enjoying food with my friends? How many of you actually post a picture of a plate after you have finished that food? Nobody. Well, I'm saying we should take pride in what we are eating, but we should also take pride in being a responsible consumer. And that responsibility is on us. And that responsibility is also for us to teach our children. I remember growing up, my mother, she never gave me more than 2 pieces of bread until another piece of bread until I finished it. I also want to call on everybody to support local production systems. I remember when I joined UN, and my first mission was to Myanmar. Myanmar was at that time, it was just coming out of isolation. I was so amazed to see the variety of food that I could eat there. Very simple, very nutritious food. I went back there 10 years later. We were all eating the same food that we eat everywhere. It was sad that we are losing. I come from India, which is a land of food from everywhere. And we are also becoming part of the same global food system. It is possible to consume local. It is possible to support local. In Mongolia, here, we have invested with the help of our investors and donors in local food production systems. We have invested in the dairy where we procure locally, process locally by local women, and consume locally. That creates jobs, it creates nutrition, it creates sustainability, and I have to say the best yogurt I have ever eaten. It is possible. Youth must lead the change. We can grow, nourish, sustain together. Our actions are our future. Thank you.